"That's adorable, honey," Mark said, not bothering to look up from his laptop as I showed him my first online sale. His fingers continued their steady rhythm against the keyboard, typing out another important email to his corporate overlords. "Maybe you can buy us coffee next week." The patronizing tone in his voice made my jaw clench, but I forced a smile. The notification from my newly launched Etsy shop glowed on my phone screen. "Congratulations! Your item, Custom Heritage Family, recipe box has sold for $79.99. It wasn't exactly Fortune 500 territory, but it was a start. My start. The workshop I'd set up in our garage still smelled of fresh sawdust and varnish. 3 months of watching woodworking videos after my corporate job, learning techniques, practicing joints, and perfecting my designs had led to this moment. But to Mark, it was just his wife's cute little hobby, something to keep me busy during my career break. He didn't know about the business plan hidden in my crafting supplies drawer, or the market research I'd conducted during my lunch breaks. At my previous job, he hadn't noticed the spreadsheets I worked on late at night, calculating costs, profit margins, and growth projections. In his mind, I was just playing with power tools while I figured out my next real career move. "I have to head to the office," Mark announced, closing his laptop with an air of importance. He straightened his designer tie, the one I'd bought him with my corporate bonus last year before I'd quit. "Some of us still have actual jobs to do." The subtle dig wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, I'd walked away from my position as a senior financial analyst at one of the city's top firms, the same firm where Mark and I had met, where he still climbed the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. He'd called my decision to leave career suicide. Maybe he was right, but staring at spreadsheets for 12 hours a day had been slowly killing my soul. "Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight," he called over his shoulder, grabbing his keys. "Try not to smell like wood stain this time." After his Tesla disappeared down our suburban driveway, I returned to my workshop, my sanctuary. The space that had once housed Mark's ambitious home gym project, abandoned after 2 months, had transformed into something magical. Tools lined the walls in careful organization, wood of various types stacked neatly in categorized shelves. The scent of cedar and oak mixed with the morning air drifting through the open garage door. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. New message from buyer. I opened it, reading the enthusiastic words. "This is exactly what I've been looking for. Do you take custom orders? I'm part of a recipe sharing group and several members are interested in your work." My heart raced as I quickly responded, professional yet friendly, outlining my custom order policies and pricing. This was it, the opportunity I'd been waiting for. While Mark thought I was just finding myself, I was laying the groundwork for something bigger. I walked over to my workbench, running my fingers along the smooth surface of my next project. The wood grain told its own story, one of patience and hidden beauty waiting to be revealed. Like the business plan in my drawer, like the skills I was quietly mastering, like the network I was carefully building in online crafting communities, some things take time to show their true value. Opening my laptop, not for corporate emails, but for my meticulously maintained business spreadsheet, I updated the sales column. One small number, but a significant one. The first drop in what I planned to make an ocean. The mortgage statement lay on my desk, its numbers a constant reminder of the golden handcuffs Mark was so proud to wear. $487,000 remaining at 4.5% interest. He thought his corporate salary was the only way to tackle it. I had other plans. Picking up my sander, I began working on my next piece. The steady hum of the machine couldn't drown out Mark's dismissive words, but it did remind me of something my grandmother used to say. The sweetest success is the one they never saw coming. I smiled, thinking of the orders I would soon have, the business that was already taking shape in my mind. Let Mark think this was just a hobby. Let him make his condescending comments over dinner with his equally corporate friends. Time would tell a different story. a story that was just beginning. Dinner with the Hendersons was exactly what I expected, a parade of corporate achievements and thinly veiled competition. Sarah Henderson's diamond tennis bracelet caught the restaurant's soft lighting as she gestured with her wine glass, talking about her recent promotion. Her husband, David, Mark's golf buddy and fellow VP, was deep in conversation about market projections and quarterly reports. "And what about you, Claire?" Sarah's perfectly manicured hand reached across the table to touch mine in what seemed like sympathy. "Mark mentioned you're taking some time off." The pause before "taking time off" carried enough judgment to fill the entire upscale restaurant. I could feel Mark tense beside me, probably preparing to jump in with some excuse about my finding myself phase. "Actually," I replied, keeping my voice steady and professional, "I've started my own business." I pulled out my phone, opening my Etsy shop's stats for the day. 3 more sales had come in during dinner, including 2 custom orders. I design and create custom wooden home goods. Sarah's polite interest couldn't quite hide her dismissal of anything that wasn't corporate. "Oh, how creative. Like a hobby shop?" "More of a specialized boutique," I corrected smoothly. "I focus on heritage pieces, custom recipe boxes, family history displays, generational photo frames, items that tell a family's story through craftsmanship." Mark coughed slightly into his bourbon. "Honey, maybe we should talk about something else. David, how's that merger coming along?" But Sarah, perhaps sensing gossip potential, pressed on. "And people actually buy these things? Online?" I smiled, thinking of the recipe-sharing group that had discovered my shop. "My first custom order. Client just referred me to her entire cooking club. I'm actually scaling up production to meet demand." "Scaling up production," Mark muttered under his breath, just loud enough for me to hear. "Listen to you, talking like it's a real business." The waiter arrived with our entrees, providing a welcome interruption. As the others dove into their overpriced steaks, I checked my phone one more time. Another message had come in. "Saw your work in my friend's kitchen. Do you ship to Canada? I'd like to order 10 boxes for my restaurant's recipe archive." My heart skipped a beat. 10 boxes at my premium international shipping rate. That would cover the materials for the new lathe I'd been eyeing. The industrial-grade one that would cut production time in half. "Claire, phone's away at dinner," Mark chided as if I were a child. "We're here to socialize." I tucked my phone away, but my mind was already racing with calculations. With the new lathe, I could increase production from 3 boxes a day to at least 7. The profit margins on international orders were higher, and if I could establish a foothold in the restaurant market— "Did you hear about Jessica from accounting?" Sarah's voice cut through my planning. "She tried starting a cupcake business after she left the firm, failed within 3 months. Now she's begging for her old job back." The implication was clear. Mark nodded sagely. "That's why it's important to stick with what you know. The corporate world might not be exciting, but it's secure." Under the table, my fingers traced the calluses I'd developed from hours of woodworking. Each one represented a skill learned, a technique mastered, a step toward independence. They couldn't see the spreadsheets showing my growing revenue, the customer reviews praising my craftsmanship, or the business account that was slowly but steadily growing. "Sometimes," I said, cutting into my barely touched salmon, "security is just another word for fear." The table fell silent for a moment. Mark shot me a warning look, but I didn't care. Let them think I was being defensive. Let them dismiss my little hobby business. Their doubt only fueled my determination. My phone buzzed again in my purse, but I resisted the urge to check it. Whatever opportunity it held could wait. Right now, I was exactly where I needed to be. Watching, listening, gathering motivation. From every condescending comment and dismissive glance. After all, the best revenge isn't served cold. It's crafted carefully, sanded smooth, and finished to perfection. 3 months after that uncomfortable dinner, my workshop had undergone a transformation that Mark somehow hadn't noticed. The new lathe hummed efficiently in the corner, paid for entirely by my Canadian restaurant orders. Industrial shelving lined the walls, each shelf carefully organized with works in progress at various stages. A small office area had emerged in one corner, complete with a shipping station and inventory management system. "Your craft corner is taking up a lot of space," Mark commented one Saturday morning, leaning against the garage doorframe in his running gear. "Maybe we should think about moving some of this stuff to the basement." I looked up from the custom wine box I was detailing, a commissioned piece for a high-end vineyard. "This isn't a craft corner, Mark. It's a production facility." He laughed, that familiar dismissive chuckle that made my teeth clench. "Production? Facility? Honey, you're making wooden boxes." "I'm running a business," I corrected, setting down my tools. "One that's grown 300% in the last quarter." "That's cute that you're tracking quarters now." He pulled out his water bottle, preparing for his morning run. "Speaking of which, the property tax bill came in. Don't worry, I'll handle it from my next bonus." I watched him jog down the driveway, his expensive running shoes disappearing around the corner. He had no idea that I'd already set aside money for the property tax. In fact, my business account now held enough to cover 3 months of mortgage payments. Not that I was planning to tell him that yet. My phone pinged with a notification from my newly launched website. Yes, I'd graduated from Etsy, though I maintained my 5-star shop there for the exposure. The notification was from a luxury hotel chain. Request for wholesale partnership discussion. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the email. The hotel wanted to commission custom welcome boxes for their VIP suites, 50 boxes per location, with potential expansion to all 12 of their properties. The proposed budget made my head spin. I walked over to my planning board, where production schedules and delivery timelines were carefully mapped out. This order would require scaling up significantly. I'd need help, proper industrial equipment, maybe even a small warehouse space. The garage, despite Mark's complaints, was already reaching its limits. Opening my business plan, I updated the projections. The numbers didn't lie. With this contract, I could match my old corporate salary within 6 months. But more importantly, I could start making serious dents in our mortgage. The sound of power tools filled the garage as I returned to work. Each piece I created was more than just wood and craftsmanship. It was a step toward something bigger. The corporate world Mark loved so much had taught me valuable lessons about scaling, operations management, and growth strategies. I was applying everything I'd learned, just not in the way he expected. Later that afternoon, while packaging orders for shipping, I overheard Mark on the phone in the kitchen. "No, David, Claire's still doing her woodworking thing. You know how it is. Gotta let them get it out of their system. She'll be back in the corporate world once she realizes you can't make real money selling crafts online." I sealed another box containing a custom-made heirloom chest, complete with hand-carved family crest, that would ship to a client in Europe. The international orders had become a significant part of my business, each one carrying a healthy profit margin. My pricing strategy, built on perceived value and craftsmanship rather than volume, was paying off exactly as planned. A calendar alert popped up on my phone. Quarterly tax payment due. Unlike Mark's corporate salary, I had to manage my own tax payments. The amount due was substantial. Evidence of real income, real profit, real business success. I submitted the payment with a smile, remembering Sarah Henderson's dismissive tone at dinner 3 months ago. The garage door opened again, and Mark returned from his run, sweaty and self-satisfied. "Still playing with your toys?" he asked, grabbing a sports drink from the mini fridge I'd installed for my own water-based wood stains. "Actually," I replied, not looking up from the shipping label I was printing, "I just landed a contract that might interest you." "Oh?" His tone carried that familiar patronizing curiosity. "Did someone order a birdhouse?" I smiled, thinking of the hotel chain's email sitting in my inbox. Something like that? Let him think what he wanted. The numbers in my business account told the real story, one that would soon be impossible to ignore. The real estate agent's card sat on my desk, her enthusiastic email about the perfect commercial space still open on my laptop. The warehouse she'd shown me yesterday was everything I needed. 3,000 square feet of potential, complete with office space and loading docks. The lease terms were reasonable, especially with my current revenue projections. Industrial real estate listings? Mark's voice startled me. He was standing behind my chair, peering at my screen with a mix of confusion and concern. Claire, what are you doing? I closed the laptop calmly, turning to face him. Looking at workspace options. The garage isn't going to be enough anymore. His face went through a series of expressions, settling on what I recognized as his rational explanation look. Honey, you can't seriously be thinking about leasing a warehouse. That's a massive financial commitment. For what? Your woodworking hobby? My business, I corrected, pulling up the purchase order from the hotel chain on my phone. I just landed a major contract. 50 custom welcome boxes for each of their properties with the potential for recurring orders. Mark took my phone, scrolling through the order details. His eyebrows rose slightly at the numbers, but he quickly handed it back. That's unexpected. But Claire, one big order doesn't justify this kind of expansion. What happens when they don't reorder? You mean like how the Canadian restaurant order didn't lead to anything? I opened my filing cabinet, pulling out a stack of invoices. They've since referred me to 6 other restaurants. Or how that first recipe box customer wouldn't amount to much. Her cooking club alone ordered 30 pieces last month. His frown deepened. Still, a warehouse? That's serious overhead. You need to think this through carefully. You mean like how I thought through my production capacity calculations? I opened another folder. Or my cash flow projections? Or maybe the market analysis I conducted before. Launching my premium line? The papers spread across my desk told a story he hadn't bothered to see. Growing sales, consistent profit margins, strategic expansion. Each spreadsheet was a testament to careful planning and execution. I had no idea you were taking this so seriously, Mark said, his voice carrying a note of surprise I hadn't heard before. But wouldn't it be safer to just scale back? Keep it manageable? Manageable like your 60-hour work weeks? I stood up, walking to my planning board. I've already hired 2 part-time assistants for order fulfillment. I'm outsourcing my bookkeeping to a professional firm. This isn't a hobby getting out of hand, Mark. This is a business that's ready for its next phase of growth. His phone buzzed, probably another urgent email from the office. But for once, he didn't immediately check it. Instead, he was studying my planning board, taking in the production schedules, delivery timelines, and growth projections. These numbers, he started, then paused. They're actually pretty solid. I should hope so. I was a financial analyst for 8 years. I pulled up my business account on my phone. Want to see something interesting? I showed him my latest bank statement. His eyes widened slightly at the balance. That's more than my last quarterly bonus. And that's after setting aside money for taxes, materials, and expansion costs. I took my phone back, letting him process the information. The warehouse isn't a risk, Mark. It's a calculated next step. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from when he was recalibrating his thoughts. Why didn't you tell me it had gotten this serious? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Or would you have called it adorable again? The silence that followed was heavy with realization. His phone buzzed again, but this time the sound seemed to highlight the gap between his world and mine. One bound by corporate hierarchies, the other growing beyond expectations. I need to think about this, he finally said, heading for the door. Just don't sign any leases yet, okay? I watched him leave, then turned back to my laptop. The real estate agent was waiting for my response. The hotel chain needed confirmation of production capacity. My business was growing, with or without Mark's understanding. Sometimes the hardest part of success is helping others accept it. The warehouse keys felt heavy in my hand as I stood in the empty space, morning light streaming through the industrial windows. I'd signed the lease yesterday while Mark was at work, my signature confident and clear on the contract. The space smelled of possibility and fresh paint. The previous tenant left the shelving units, my new assistant Emma noted, checking items off her tablet. That'll save us about $3,000 on the initial setup costs. She was a recent business school graduate who'd chosen my growing company over a corporate position, something that still made me smile. Perfect. Let's map out the production zones today. I walked to the center of the space, already envisioning the workflow. The hotel chain wants to see our capacity before confirming the multi-location deal. My phone buzzed. Mark, did you seriously sign a warehouse lease without telling me? I put the phone on speaker while reviewing the floor plans Emma had drawn up. I told you I was expanding the business. This isn't expanding, Claire. This is reckless. Do you know what kind of liability you're taking on? What if the business continues growing at its current rate? I interrupted, my voice steady. What if the hotel chain signs the multi-location contract? What if I told you I've already covered 6 months of lease payments with existing orders? Silence on the other end. Then, we need to talk about this. In person. Tonight. Can't tonight. I have a video call with a luxury resort in Switzerland. They're interested in custom ski lodge gift boxes. I watched as Emma directed the delivery team bringing in our new industrial equipment. How about tomorrow, at lunch? Switzerland? His voice cracked slightly. Claire, what's really going on here? What's going on is that I'm running a successful business that's expanding internationally. I'd love to tell you all about it when you're ready to listen without judgment. After hanging up, I turned my attention to the production floor setup. The new laser engraver was being installed, a piece of equipment that would allow us to offer even more customization options. The automated sanding station would increase our efficiency by 40%. Each addition had been carefully researched and budgeted. Your husband still doesn't get it, does he? Emma asked, handing me the latest batch of order confirmations. He's starting to, I replied, scanning the documents. But 8 years of seeing me as just his wife who quit her real job is hard to overcome. A notification popped up on my tablet. Another large order, this time from a boutique winery in Napa Valley. They wanted custom boxes for their reserve. Collection releases. The attached purchase order made me glad I'd invested in the expanded production capacity. Should I start sourcing additional lumber suppliers? Emma was already pulling up our vendor database. With these new orders, we'll need to increase our material stock. I nodded, walking over to inspect the new finishing station. Contact that Sustainable Forestry Cooperative we met at the trade show. Their premium hardwoods would be perfect for the wine boxes. The day flew by in a whirlwind of setup decisions, team training, and order processing. By evening, the warehouse was taking shape, transforming from an empty shell into a proper production facility. The sound of machinery testing filled the space with productive energy. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sarah Henderson. Heard about your warehouse. Is this some kind of midlife crisis? I smiled, taking a photo of our new setup. The professional equipment, organized production lines, and busy staff clearly visible. I sent it with a simple reply. No crisis, just growth. Driving home that evening, I thought about the conversation awaiting me tomorrow. Mark would come armed with concerns, spreadsheets, and probably advice from his corporate friends. What he didn't know was that I'd already addressed every potential issue he might raise. The mortgage statement sat on my desk at home, its numbers no longer intimidating. At my current growth rate, I could make a significant extra payment by the end of the quarter. Not that I was planning to tell Mark that yet. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth isn't through arguments or explanations. It's through undeniable results. Lunch with Mark took place at his favorite upscale restaurant, the kind where business deals were made over expensive wines and overpriced steaks. He'd chosen it deliberately, I knew, to remind me of the corporate world I'd left behind. "I've been doing some research," he announced as soon as we were seated, pulling out a folder stuffed with printouts. "Do you know what the failure rate is for small businesses in their first year?" I sipped my water, noting how he'd positioned himself on the power side of the table, an old corporate negotiation tactic. "I do. I also know the success factors that separate failing businesses from thriving ones. Would you like to see my metrics?" He blinked, momentarily thrown off script. "Claire, I'm just trying to protect you. This warehouse lease is a huge commitment. What happens if the hotel chain backs out? If the European orders dry up? You mean like how our mortgage is a huge commitment?" I opened my laptop, pulling up my business dashboard. "Here's my current order book. Here's my cash reserve. Here's my projected revenue for the next 3 quarters, based on confirmed contracts only, not including potential new business." The numbers spoke for themselves. Even Mark, with his MBA and years of corporate finance experience, couldn't deny their implications. I watched as he scrolled through the data, his forehead creasing. "These margins are impressive," he admitted reluctantly, "but it's still risky. You're expanding too fast." "Actually, I'm expanding strategically." I pulled up another spreadsheet. "Each piece of equipment I've purchased has a clear ROI timeline. Every new hire is tied to specific production needs. I'm not playing business, Mark. I'm building something substantial." A waiter approached, and Mark ordered his usual expensive lunch. I chose a light salad. I had a factory to run after all. "The Hendersons are concerned," he said after the waiter left. "David mentioned something about you poaching one of their potential MBA hires?" "You mean Emma? She chose to join my company over their entry-level corporate position. She's already managing our production logistics and international shipping operations." Mark's phone buzzed, probably another urgent work email. For once, mine was silent. I'd set up proper business hours and delegated effectively, something the corporate world had never taught him. "Look," he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "I know you're enjoying this entrepreneurial phase, but maybe it's time to think about coming back to the real world. The firm would take you back in a heartbeat." Pulled out my own folder, sliding it across the table. Inside was the latest purchase order from the Swiss resort, along with the signed contract from the hotel chain, not just for one location, but for all 12 properties. "This is my real world now," I said quietly, "and it's more successful than either of us expected." He stared at the contracts, particularly at the bottom-line numbers. His lunch arrived, but he barely noticed. "Why didn't you tell me it had gotten this serious?" he asked again, echoing his question from days before. I tried. "Remember that first Etsy sale? The recipe box orders? The Canadian restaurant contract? You dismissed every milestone as a cute accomplishment, like a child bringing home a finger, painting. The truth of it hung between us, heavier than the leather-bound menu." Mark's phone buzzed again, but this time he didn't reach for it. "I have another meeting," I said, standing. "The Sustainable Forestry Cooperative is flying in to discuss exclusive supplier arrangements for our premium lines." "Claire, wait." Mark's voice had lost its condescending edge. Maybe we should talk about this more. Really talk. I could look at your business plan." "You can see it in action at our warehouse opening next week," I replied, gathering my things. "Bring the Hendersons. Sarah might be interested in our new women's entrepreneurship mentoring program." Leaving him with the bill, he could afford it with his corporate salary after all. I headed back to my warehouse. There was real work to be done, real decisions to be made, real success to be built. And somewhere in my office desk drawer, a mortgage statement waited for its next substantial payment. The warehouse opening event was everything I'd envisioned. Professional lighting highlighted our production lines, each station showcasing different aspects of our craftsmanship. Display cases featured our premium collections, from wine boxes to family heirloom chests. The sustainable forestry presentation in the conference room drew constant crowds. "Your setup is impressive," David Henderson admitted, examining our automated engraving system. His corporate demeanor couldn't quite hide his surprise. "This is actually professional." "That's the point," Emma replied before I could, her confidence evident. "We're revolutionizing the custom woodworking industry through strategic automation and artisan craftsmanship." I hid my smile, remembering how the Hendersons had tried to recruit her for their corporate training program. Now she was helping run a rapidly growing international business, making decisions that actually mattered. Sarah Henderson drifted over, wineglass in hand. "Claire, darling, I had no idea you'd gotten so organized." Her eyes scanned the facility, lingering on the sophisticated inventory management system. "Though, isn't all this a bit ambitious for handmade boxes? Would you call it ambitious if a man had built it?" Emma asked innocently, pulling up our sales projections on her tablet. "Because our growth metrics suggest we're actually being conservative in our expansion." I left them to their discussion, making my way through the crowd of suppliers, clients, and local business leaders. The Swiss resort representatives were examining our premium ski lodge collection, while the hotel chain executives were in deep conversation with our production manager about scaling capabilities. Mark stood near the entrance, unusually quiet. He'd watched the entire event with an expression I couldn't quite read, somewhere between amazement and discomfort. His corporate worldview was being challenged with every successful interaction he witnessed. "The Sustainable Forestry Cooperative is impressive," he said as I approached. "Their supply chain model is actually quite innovative." "They're revolutionizing responsible lumber sourcing," I agreed. "We're finalizing an exclusive partnership agreement next week." A notification popped up on the display screen behind us. Another major order confirmation, this time from a luxury car manufacturer wanting custom presentation boxes for their vehicle documentation. Mark saw it too, his eyebrows rising at the six-figure number. "Claire," he started, then paused as one of our craftsmen demonstrated the laser engraving system to an enthusiastic group of potential clients. "I think I owe you an apology." Before I could respond, Emma hurried over with urgent news. The Napa Valley Winery just doubled their order. They want to expand the custom boxes to their entire premium line, not just the reserve collection. "Adjust the production schedule accordingly," I replied, "and contact our lumber suppliers to ensure we can maintain quality standards with the increased volume." Mark watched this exchange with new eyes, finally seeing me as a business leader rather than just his wife playing with power tools. The corporate efficiency he valued so highly was right here in my warehouse, driving real growth and tangible success. "Your entrepreneurship mentoring program," he said suddenly. "Sarah's actually interested. She's been questioning some things about corporate life lately." I nodded, watching Sarah across the room as she engaged with our marketing team, her corporate facade slowly cracking under the evidence of alternative paths to success. "The program starts next month. We're focusing on sustainable business development and authentic leadership." The event continued into the evening, each hour bringing new connections, opportunities, and validations of my business model. Our client list grew, our reputation solidified, and our future brightened with every handshake and signed contract. Later, as the last guest departed and the cleaning crew began their work, I sat in my office reviewing the day's achievements. The mortgage statement lay open on my desk. I'd been making triple payments for the past 2 months, a fact Mark had yet to discover. A message from Emma lit up my phone. Final tally from today. 8 new major contracts, 15 potential partnerships, and 3 investors asking about expansion possibilities. "Still think we're being too ambitious?" I smiled, thinking of Sarah's earlier comment. Ambition wasn't the question anymore. Success was the answer. 1 month after the warehouse opening, I sat in our home office reviewing the latest financial reports. The business had exceeded even my optimistic projections, with the luxury car manufacturer's order leading to referrals throughout the automotive industry. Premium vehicle documentation boxes were becoming our fastest-growing product line. "You missed dinner again," Mark said from the doorway, his voice carrying an odd mix of concern and curiosity. "I brought you some leftovers." "Thanks." I glanced up from my laptop, where Emma's latest production optimization report showed a 50% increase in efficiency. The European market is really picking up. Time zones make scheduling tricky. He set the plate down, then lingered, looking at the papers spread across my desk. His eyes caught on a bank statement, widening slightly at the balance. "Is that from your business account?" "One of them," I replied absently, marking another item off my to-do list. "We maintain separate accounts for operational expenses, payroll, and expansion capital." The sound of his sharp intake of breath made me look up. Mark was staring at me as if seeing me for the first time, his corporate mindset visibly grappling with this new reality. "Claire," he said slowly, "exactly how successful is your business?" Instead of answering directly, I pulled up our quarterly report. "Remember how you said small businesses have a high failure rate in their first year? We've exceeded 5 years of projected growth in 6 months. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of my laptop. Mark picked up one of the reports, his financial analyst background allowing him to quickly grasp the implications of our numbers. "These profit margins are incredible," he muttered, flipping through pages. "And your operational efficiency? How did you mean, how did your wife's little hobby become a serious business?" I couldn't quite keep the edge from my voice. "The same way any business succeeds: strategic planning, market analysis, and relentless execution." My phone buzzed with a message from our Swiss partners. Another large order, this time for their new luxury chalet development. While I responded, Mark continued examining the reports, his expression growing increasingly complex. "Sarah submitted her resignation letter today," he said suddenly. "She's joining your mentorship program full-time. David's furious." "She's not the only one," I replied, pulling up our program roster. 3 other corporate executives have enrolled. Turns out there's a market for people wanting to break free from golden handcuffs. The irony wasn't lost on Mark. He'd always been proud of his corporate success, measuring himself by bonuses and titles. Now his wife's hobby was showing people, including his own colleagues, a different path. "The Hendersons' firm is struggling," he continued, sitting down heavily in the guest chair. "Budget cuts, layoffs. David's position isn't as secure as he thought." I nodded, remembering their dismissive attitudes at dinner months ago. "We're always looking for experienced business professionals. If David's interested, he can submit his resume like everyone else." Mark's phone buzzed, another late-night email from his corporate overlords. But for the first time I could remember, he didn't immediately check it. Instead, he was staring at a framed photo on my wall, my first handmade recipe box next to our latest luxury product line. "I really didn't see it," he said quietly. "Any of it. I was so convinced I knew what success looked like." "Success looks different for everyone," I replied, turning back to my work. "Sometimes it looks like corporate achievements. Sometimes it looks like handmade wooden boxes that ship to 3 continents. He stood up, straightening his tie in what seemed like an unconscious gesture. "Will you be home for breakfast tomorrow? Maybe we could really talk, about your business." "I have an early supplier meeting," I said, checking my calendar. "But I'm free for lunch. Not at your usual corporate place, though. I prefer meetings where real work gets done." As Mark left the office, I opened my personal banking app. Tomorrow would be interesting for another reason. I'd scheduled another substantial extra payment on our mortgage, one that would be hard to miss on our monthly statement. Sometimes the biggest statements are made by the smallest notifications. The bank notification hit Mark's phone during a crucial board meeting at his firm. I knew because he called me immediately afterward, his voice a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Claire, why is there a $100,000 payment on our mortgage? There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I replied, watching my production team assemble a custom order for a new luxury yacht client. "I've been making extra payments for the past few months. This one was just larger than usual." Silence on the other end. Then, how did you— "My little hobby is quite profitable," I said, unable to keep a slight edge from my voice. "Remember when you said I couldn't make real money selling crafts online?" Emma appeared at my office door, tablet in hand, gesturing urgently about a new development. "I need to go," I told Mark. "We can discuss this over dinner. I'm actually cooking tonight. No late meetings." The afternoon flew by in a whirlwind of activity. The yacht client's parent company wanted to discuss a fleet-wide contract. Our sustainable forestry partners had identified a new exotic hardwood source. Sarah Henderson's mentorship group was exceeding all expectations, with 3 participants already launching successful ventures. "The automotive division needs to expand," Emma reported during our afternoon briefing. "The German luxury brands are all requesting proposals now. We'll need another production line." I reviewed the numbers on my screen. The business had grown beyond even my ambitious projections. What had started in my garage was now an international operation with multiple divisions, each more successful than the last. "Schedule a meeting with the bank tomorrow," I instructed. "Let's discuss financing options for a second warehouse facility." A notification popped up from our Swiss partners. Their luxury chalet project had doubled in scope. The custom welcome boxes we'd designed had impressed their ultra-wealthy clients so much that they wanted exclusive designs for each property. "Claire?" Sarah Henderson appeared in my doorway, looking remarkably different from her corporate days. Gone were the power suits and rigid posture. She carried herself with a new kind of confidence. "Do you have a moment?" I gestured her in, noting the business plan in her hands. She'd been developing a luxury organization consulting firm, targeting the same high-end clients we served. "David finally admitted he's interested in joining the mentorship program," she said, sitting down. "The latest round of corporate layoffs has him reconsidering his options." "We're starting a new cohort next month," I replied, thinking of all the times David had dismissed my business over expensive dinners. "He's welcome to apply." My phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "Checked the mortgage statement. When did you make the other payments? How much have you been—" I set the phone aside, turning back to Sarah's business plan. The corporate world Mark loved so much was changing. More people were realizing that success didn't have to mean fluorescent lights and endless meetings about meetings. "Your husband's having trouble processing all this, isn't he?" Sarah asked, gesturing at my office, the warehouse beyond. "Mark always thought he had the monopoly on financial success in your relationship." "He thought he had the monopoly on a lot of things," I replied, signing off on another international shipping order. "Speaking of processing, how's David handling your new venture's success?" Sarah smiled. A real smile, not her old corporate one. "He's finally stopped asking when I'm going back to real work. Yesterday, he actually asked for my advice on business strategy." The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the warehouse windows, highlighting the busy production floor. Craftsmen and machines worked in harmony, creating pieces that would grace luxury homes and establishments worldwide. "We're not just building businesses," I told Sarah, watching her eyes track our efficient operation. "We're changing perceptions about what success can look like." My phone buzzed again. Mark, probably still trying to process the mortgage payment. Tomorrow, he'd discover I'd scheduled another one for next week. Smaller, but still substantial. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead, on your own terms. Dinner that evening was a study in contrasts. I'd prepared Mark's favorite lasagna, its aroma filling our kitchen with memories of simpler times. He sat at our dining table, his corporate armor showing cracks, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled, phone face down beside his plate for the first time in years. $250,000, he said, breaking the careful silence. You've paid down $250,000 of our mortgage in the past 3 months. I took a sip of wine, letting the number hang in the air between us. The business has been doing well. Doing well? He pushed his barely touched food around his plate. Claire, that's more than my annual bonus. From wooden boxes. From an international luxury goods company, I corrected, pulling out my tablet. Would you like to see exactly how well? Before he could answer, my phone lit up with a message from our newest client, a prestigious auction house wanting custom presentation cases for their high-end collectibles. The proposed contract value made Mark's bonus look like pocket change. I had a meeting with the board today, he said suddenly, his voice unusually hesitant. They're downsizing the firm's domestic operations, moving most positions overseas. No, I replied quietly. Sarah mentioned the industry trends during our last mentorship session. It's why David finally decided to explore other options. Mark's fork clattered against his plate. You knew about the downsizing? I know a lot of things, Mark, like how 3 of your firm's biggest clients have approached us about custom corporate gift lines, or how your CEO's wife ordered a custom jewelry box last week and mentioned her husband's retirement plans. The corporate world he'd believed in so firmly was shifting beneath his feet, while my hobby had grown into something he could no longer dismiss or ignore. The warehouse expansion plans are approved, I continued, watching his reactions carefully. We're breaking ground next month. The automotive division alone will generate enough revenue to cover the construction costs within the first year. A notification chimed, Emma sending the latest production reports. Our efficiency metrics were setting industry standards, our craft meets technology approach attracting attention from business schools and industry analysts. Why didn't you tell me? Mark asked, his voice small. About the mortgage payments. The business success, any of it? I did tell you, every step of the way. You just weren't listening. I pulled up our business dashboard. Remember my first Etsy sale? You called it adorable. The Canadian restaurant order? A cute little project. The hotel chain contract? A lucky break. Each dismissal hung between us. Years of patronizing comments and diminishing remarks laid bare in our quiet kitchen. The firm offered me a transfer, he said finally, to their Singapore office. They're presenting it as a promotion. But it's really a way to slowly phase out more domestic positions, I finished. What are you going to do? He looked around our kitchen, eyes landing on the framed photo of my first workshop setup in the garage. I don't know. For the first time in my career, I really don't know. My phone buzzed again. The Swiss Resorts development team requesting an urgent meeting about expanding their order. The yacht client's parent company had sent over preliminary contracts. Sarah needed to discuss scaling her consulting firm. Our mentorship program's new cohort starts next month, I said carefully, standing to clear the dishes. If you're interested in exploring options beyond corporate life. Mark stared at his untouched lasagna, the weight of decisions pressing down on him. His phone remained face down, ignored corporate emergencies piling up while he confronted a new reality. How do you do it? He asked finally. Build something so successful from scratch? The same way you build anything worthwhile, I replied, thinking of my journey from garage workshop to international business. One piece at a time, with clear vision and unwavering determination. The mortgage statement lay on the counter behind us, its decreasing balance a testament to perseverance and belief in oneself. Sometimes the biggest victories come not from proving others wrong, but from proving yourself right. The following week brought changes I hadn't anticipated. Mark took a personal day, his first in 5 years, to visit my warehouse facility. He arrived dressed casually, without his usual corporate armor, looking almost vulnerable in jeans. And a button-down shirt. I'd like to understand, he said simply, standing in my office doorway. Really understand. Emma raised an eyebrow as she passed by with production schedules, but quickly shifted into presentation mode. Should I show him the automated systems first, or start with the artisan workshops? Everything, I replied, watching Mark's expression. He needs to see it all. The tour began where everything had started, with the basic woodworking stations. Mark watched in silence as master craftsmen transformed raw lumber into precisely shaped components. His analytical mind seemed to be cataloging every detail, every process. Each piece is tracked through our proprietary management system, Emma explained, pulling up digital workflows on her tablet. We can monitor quality control, production times, and material usage in real time. Mark's eyes widened at the sophistication of our operations. This is more advanced than some Fortune 500 companies I've worked with. Claire designed the system herself, Emma added, a hint of pride in her voice. It's been featured in 3 business technology journals. We moved through the facility, past the laser engraving stations where custom designs were being etched into wine boxes, past the finishing area where our signature protective coatings were being applied, past the quality control stations where each piece was meticulously inspected. The Swiss resort just confirmed their expanded order, our production manager reported, hurrying up with a tablet. They want to double the chalet welcome boxes and add a new line of custom furniture. I quickly reviewed the specifications while Mark watched, noting how the interaction flowed. No corporate posturing, just efficient decision-making and clear communication. Your operational efficiency is remarkable, he said finally, as we reached the shipping area. The integration of traditional craftsmanship with modern technology is exactly what the luxury market demands, I finished. Handcrafted quality with technological precision and scale. A group of visitors caught my attention, representatives from a high-end restaurant group interested in custom wine presentation, boxes. Sarah Henderson was leading the tour, her natural networking skills now focused on meaningful connections rather than corporate politics. Sarah's consulting firm is handling our hospitality sector expansion, I explained to Mark. She understands the luxury market demographics perfectly. She seems different, Mark observed, watching his former colleague confidently discuss business strategy with potential clients. Happier. Success does that, I replied. Real success, not just titles and corner offices. We reached the development lab where new products were being prototyped. The automotive division was testing innovative materials for their luxury documentation. Cases! The yacht client's custom samples were being finished for approval. Your inventory turnover ratio must be incredible, Mark muttered, his financial analyst background surfacing as he examined our storage systems. And your cash flow management. Would you like to see the numbers? I offered, leading him back to my office. All of them? For the next hour, I walked him through our financials, profit margins, growth projections, international market penetration, everything. His questions were thoughtful, focused, showing genuine interest rather than skepticism. You've built something extraordinary, he said finally, sitting back in his chair. While I was climbing the corporate ladder, you were creating an empire. My phone buzzed with a message from our bank. Another mortgage payment had been processed. Mark's phone buzzed too, probably the payment notification on his end. I'm not taking the Singapore position, he announced suddenly. I can't. I don't want to be part of that world anymore. Before I could respond, Emma appeared with urgent news. The luxury car manufacturer's parent company wanted to discuss a global partnership. Their CEO was flying in next week. Would you like to stay for the operations meeting? I asked Mark. See how we handle real business decisions? He nodded, removing his phone from his pocket and placing it face down on my desk. A small gesture that spoke volumes. Sometimes the biggest transformations start with the smallest steps. The operations meeting was unlike anything Mark had experienced in his corporate career. Instead of endless PowerPoint presentations and political maneuvering, he witnessed rapid decision-making backed by real-time data and practical expertise. The German automotive contracts require dedicated production lines, Emma reported, displaying facility layouts on the conference room screen. We've identified space in the new warehouse expansion, but we'll need to accelerate the construction timeline. I nodded, reviewing the projected costs on my tablet. Contact our contractors. See if we can incentivize faster completion without compromising quality. Mark watched intently as we moved through agenda items: production optimization, international shipping logistics, new market opportunities. Each discussion was focused, efficient, and action-oriented. The mentorship program's success rate is attracting attention, Sarah added, pulling up her quarterly report. 3 business schools have requested partnerships, and a major business publication wants to feature our approach to entrepreneurship training. The contrast with corporate meetings was stark. No posturing, no endless debates about minor details, no political alliances to navigate. Just clear objectives and practical solutions. The auction house contract is finalized, our legal team reported virtually. They want to begin with their rare coin division, then expand to antiquities and fine art. As we discussed implementation strategies, I noticed Mark taking notes. Not on his phone or laptop, but in an actual notebook, his corporate habits giving way to more practical approaches. Your team actually gets things done, he said during a brief break. No committees, no endless approval chains, just results. That's what happens when people are invested in real success, not just corporate advancement, I replied, watching our production floor through the conference room windows. A notification appeared on my screen. Another significant mortgage payment had cleared. We were now well past the halfway point to completely paying off our home. Mark's phone buzzed with the same notification, but this time he didn't even check it. The luxury yacht client's parent company sent over their projected orders for the next fiscal year, Emma announced, returning with fresh data. They're expanding their custom program to include all their maritime divisions. The numbers were staggering, enough to justify a 3rd production facility. As we discussed scaling strategies, I caught Mark studying our organizational chart, noting its practical, fluid structure so different from rigid corporate hierarchies. David Henderson called, Sarah mentioned during the final agenda items. He's officially accepted a place in the next mentorship cohort. His resignation letter goes in tomorrow. Mark's expression shifted at this news. Another pillar of his corporate world choosing a different path. The meeting concluded with clear action items and designated responsibilities. No endless email, chains, or follow-up meetings about meetings. I'd like to see more, Mark said as others filed out. Not just the operations, but everything. The whole business model. Before I could respond, Emma rushed back in. The German automotive executives had moved up their site visit. They'd be arriving next week, not next month. Simultaneously, the Swiss resort development team needed urgent decisions about their expanded order. Welcome to real business, I told Mark, pulling up our project management dashboard, where success is measured in actual achievements, not quarterly presentations. He moved closer to examine the screen, his corporate analyst mind processing the complexity of our operations. Your inventory management algorithms are revolutionary, he noted, and your production flow optimization. Would you like to understand how it all works? I offered, thinking of the detailed business plans he'd once dismissed as hobby documentation. My phone lit up with another international inquiry. A luxury hotel group in Dubai interested in custom Arabic-inspired pieces. Their project scope would require yet another expansion of our design team. I would, Mark replied, his voice carrying a new kind of humility. I really would. I glanced at his phone, still face down and ignored on the conference table. His corporate world was calling, but for the first time in our marriage, he wasn't answering. Then let's start at the beginning, I said, pulling up my original business plan. With a simple idea about creating something meaningful. Sometimes the best education comes from unlearning what you thought you knew. 2 weeks after Mark's first real glimpse into my business, our lives had shifted dramatically. He'd taken an extended leave of absence from his firm, shocking his corporate colleagues, but finally feeling aligned with his true interests. Every day, he arrived at the warehouse early, absorbing every aspect of our operation with the dedication of a man rediscovering purpose. "The German automotive executives are impressed with our presentation," Emma reported during our morning briefing, "especially the custom integration of traditional woodworking with their brand heritage." I nodded, reviewing the prototype designs on my tablet while Mark studied our production capacity projections. His financial expertise, freed from corporate constraints, had proven surprisingly valuable in optimizing our expansion plans. "The Sustainable Forestry Cooperative sent their quarterly projections," he added, pulling up detailed spreadsheets. "I've identified some efficiency opportunities in their supply chain that could reduce our material costs by 15%. The transformation in his approach was striking. Instead of corporate jargon and political maneuvering, he focused on practical solutions and real results. His understanding of financial markets, combined with our craftsmanship expertise, was opening new possibilities. "Sarah's latest mentorship group is oversubscribed," Emma continued. "Mostly corporate executives looking to transition into entrepreneurship." David Henderson's success story is attracting attention. David had launched his own venture, a consultancy bridging traditional corporate structures with modern entrepreneurial approaches. His insider knowledge of corporate inefficiencies had proven invaluable to companies seeking transformation. "The mortgage statement arrived," Mark said quietly, placing the envelope on my desk. "Would you like to do the honors?" I opened it slowly, though I already knew what it would show. The latest payments had reduced our remaining balance to a fraction of its original amount. What had once seemed an insurmountable debt was now a nearly conquered challenge. 3 more payments, I confirmed, sliding the statement toward him, all scheduled and funded. His phone buzzed, his corporate office again, probably wondering when he'd return from his temporary leave. The device remained untouched as he focused on our warehouse expansion blueprints. "The Dubai Hotel Group increased their initial order by 40%, Emma announced, bringing in updated contracts. "They want exclusive rights to our Arabic-inspired designs in the Middle East market." As we discussed international distribution strategies, I watched Mark engaging with our team members, asking insightful questions about craftsmanship techniques and production workflows. The corporate mask had fallen away, revealing someone genuinely interested in building something meaningful. The auction house sent over their rare manuscript division specifications, our design team leader called from the prototype area. "They're requesting samples for their board presentation next week." Each new project brought fresh challenges and opportunities. Our business had evolved from custom boxes to comprehensive luxury presentations, each piece telling a story of heritage and craftsmanship. "I submitted my resignation letter," Mark announced suddenly, looking up from his market analysis. "Actually, I submitted it 2 weeks ago. I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you." Before I could respond, Sarah burst in with urgent news. Her consulting firm had landed a major contract, transforming a traditional corporation's entire approach to product development. She wanted to collaborate on implementation strategies. "Are you sure about this?" I asked Mark quietly while Sarah discussed details with Emma. "The corporate world has been your life for so long." He gestured at the bustling warehouse beyond my office windows. "This is real," he said simply. "What we're building here, it's tangible, meaningful. I've spent years moving numbers around. Spreadsheets, playing corporate politics. I want to create something that matters." My phone chimed with another international inquiry, a prestigious museum interested in custom conservation cases for their rare artifacts. The scope would require yet another expansion of our capabilities. "Besides," Mark added, pulling up our latest financial projections, "I've learned something important from all this." "What's that?" "Sometimes the best path to success isn't climbing someone else's ladder. It's building your own stairs. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from proving others wrong, but from helping them find their own right path. 1 year to the day after my first Etsy sale, I stood in our home office holding the final mortgage statement. Mark was beside me, both of us staring at the bold letters declaring, "Paid in full." The journey from garage workshop to international success story felt both longer and shorter than 12 months. "I found this the other day," Mark said, pulling out a creased photograph. It showed me at my first workbench, proudly displaying that initial recipe box. I was such an idiot. "Not an idiot," I corrected, setting down the mortgage statement. "Just trapped in a limited perspective." My phone buzzed with updates from the warehouse. The German automotive lines were operating at full capacity. The Zotte Dubai hotel collection was exceeding expectations, and the Swiss resort project had spawned 3 similar developments in other luxury markets. "The museum conservation case prototypes are ready for review," Emma reported via video call. "The curators are particularly impressed with our humidity control integration." Mark jumped in, sharing his analysis of potential museum market expansion. His corporate finance background, now freed from bureaucratic constraints, had evolved into genuine business acumen. He understood now that true success wasn't about quarterly reports and office politics. It was about creating real value. "Sarah's latest mentorship group is ready to graduate," Emma continued. "Their business launches have attracted venture capital attention. They're calling it the anti-corporate revolution." I smiled, remembering Sarah's dismissive attitude at that dinner so long ago. Now, her consulting firm was reshaping corporate cultures, with David's help transforming traditional businesses into more dynamic enterprises. "The Hendersons sent this over," Mark said, pulling up an email. "Their new venture is taking off. They're interested in collaborating on luxury home organization systems." The corporate world that had once seemed so essential was evolving. Our success had sparked a movement, showing others that alternative paths weren't just possible, they were often more rewarding. "The Sustainable Forestry Cooperative's expansion is proceeding ahead of schedule," our operations team reported. "The new exotic wood lines will be available for the upcoming luxury yacht collection." Looking around my home office, I noticed how much had changed. The space once dominated by corporate awards and certificates now displayed photographs of our craft process, samples of our finest work, and thank you notes from satisfied clients worldwide. "I had lunch with my old boss yesterday," Mark mentioned, reviewing production schedules on his tablet. "He couldn't understand why I seem happier now, working longer hours than I did in corporate." "Maybe because you're building something real," I suggested, watching our craftsmen through the warehouse security feed. "Something that matters." The final mortgage payment had hit our account that morning, a symbolic end to one chapter and the beginning of another. What had started as my cute little hobby had grown into something neither of us could have imagined. The luxury car manufacturer's CEO sent over their global partnership proposal, Emma announced, forwarding the documents. "They want exclusive rights to our design philosophy for their heritage collection." Mark began analyzing the terms, his approach now balanced between financial sense and creative vision. The corporate executor had become a true business builder, understanding that success wasn't just about numbers, it was about impact. "Remember when I said you couldn't make real money selling crafts online?" he asked, looking up from the contract. I've never been happier to be wrong. The warehouse hummed with activity beyond our office windows. Craftsmen and machines worked in harmony, creating pieces that would grace homes and establishments worldwide. Each item told a story, not just of luxury and craftsmanship, but of believing in your vision despite others' doubts. "We should frame it," I said, picking up the mortgage statement again. "Not just as a reminder of paying off our home, but of building something meaningful together." Mark nodded, his corporate past now feeling like a distant memory. "From hobby to empire," he mused. "All because you refused to accept others' limitations." "No," I corrected, watching our team prepare shipments for 3 continents. "All because I believed in building something real." Sometimes the greatest success isn't in proving doubters wrong, it's in showing them a better way to be right.